gets, got it. Provided that my screen does what I want it to do here. I guess it does, right? Is my screen shared? Okay. So this is a little topic that I hope you will consider the most important thing you've ever learned about SEL since you started looking into SEL. But it's something that I think most of us kind of aren't necessarily completely aware of anyway, but only partially aware of. But no, so the real issue is why SEL works and why it's important that we know. And so I want to take you through some ideas here, and maybe we'll have time for some questions after that. But first of all, caring school community, which I think most people have heard of, we just got discussed in our breakout room, as a matter of fact. But caring school community is one of the oldest SEL programs that's around. It also is probably the most researched program, SEL program, that is around. It's got a larger research base going back 20, 30 years now in terms of its effectiveness and so forth, and has been called actually in the past by a couple of different people that I have been aware of, maybe the most effective SEL program ever implemented. But Caring School Community did not start as an SEL curriculum. As a matter of fact, Caring School Community was around and was up and going at the Developmental Studies Center in California before the term SEL was even invented. And really the way it started was, it was a group of educated educators who really said, how do we create a better world? That's what we want to do. And we want top quality academics, but why can't we do top quality academics in such a way that we're also building top quality relationships and teaching kids top quality skills about working together with one another and appreciating one another and really, kind of being peaceful with one another. And so that's kind of the way it started. What did they do? This program started out with a firm commitment to attachment theory. Okay? And I think most people have heard about attachment theory in graduate training anyway. But one way to interpret what attachment theory is all about is kids are not going to be motivated to learn. They're not going to be motivated to self-regulate. They're not going to be motivated to think about the welfare of others until they're certain that at least one adult is consistently responsive to their needs. Okay, basically, kids are going to have poor social emotional functioning unless they have attachment. Now, at least one adult, and we knew all those studies from those early things about kids being left by mom, and there's a whole different reaction that kids have if they have a secure attachment to mom versus an attachment to mom where mom hasn't really been emotionally and physically available to kids anyway. That's kind of really where it started. The other thing that Caring School Community in its early days was really basing itself on was what's called self-determination theory. Very close to attachment theory, a little broader, but self-determination theory really says kids aren't going to be motivated to learn in school. They're not going to be motivated to self-regulate. Kids are not going to be interested in thinking about the welfare of other people around them until their needs for a sense of some kind of autonomy, until their needs for attachment, which I didn't put in red there because we just dealt with that, and until their needs for competence are filled. And a sense of competence is really what SEL is all about. Okay. But that's how they started. So they were not focusing on doing this or doing that. They really wanted to do that, along with obviously top quality academics. They wanted to involve parents. They wanted to involve, want to do a lot of things. But these were really the philosophical bases of what was going on. Okay. Yeah, I'm going to switch gears and make a statement, even though I still have the Caring School Community logo here, or the photo anyway. Basically, North Clackamas School District does not have an SEL coordinator because of SEL. Yes, North Clackamas School District does have an SEL coordinator, and a few other districts represented here today. You too have SEL coordinators, but at least North Clackamas, which is one of the first, according to my understanding, they didn't start to have an SEL coordinator because they had some amazing SEL program that they purchased, implemented, and saw, oh, we've got such great results with this, so let's do it. What did they do? North Clackamas School District had a school that basically was the most struggling school in the whole district, had the most number of discipline referrals to the office. It had the greatest number of suspensions in the whole district of 22 schools. It really had a lot of, even despite some real talent in the school, a lot of real issues that just weren't working anyway. And together, by putting some plans in place and working with faculty and a pretty talented and supportive principal also, I should say, they changed a school in North Carolina School District from what was the most struggling, basically, let's put it this way, the school at the bottom of the heap in terms of success, and made that into what was considered by many the #1 school. Okay. They had amazing academic results, but they also had amazing disciplinary results. Okay. They were so successful that the district did what the districts frequently do. They took the principal of that school and sent him to the school which had then become the most struggling school in the district. Okay. And the principal putting together a staff, and Marie Claire was part of that staff, putting together there. Within 4 years, working together, this team of people took that school from the most struggling school, the most needy school, maybe in many ways in the district, to the school that now is considered, I think, the model school in the district. I heard one of the district administrators say in this meeting a couple of years ago that when we have people coming to visit schools and they want to see a good example of our schools, that's where we send them. Okay, we send them to Oak Grove. So anyway, they didn't start because they had an SEL program that they purchased and got everybody to implement. They started because they were doing some other things. What did they do? Well, that first school and that second school, they really started with work on attachment theory. We heard this before. Okay, the sense that kids aren't going to be ready to do schoolwork at our schools until they feel like their teacher really cares about them, until they have a good, safe, trusting, warm relationship with the teacher, and until we build the right kind of relationship with kids. And they built this on self-determination theory. What kind of power can we give to kids? What kind of, how can we help them to build their skills, to guide their own lives, to take care of their own regulation, to do things by themselves that we don't have to do for them? How can we give them those skills, and how can we give them the permission to develop those kind of skills? Okay. So in other words, they worked on filling kids' needs for autonomy, for attachment, and for competence. Okay. So amazing. 2 stories like that. Both based on the same things. Anyway, I want to go over this really quickly, and I don't think Maslow's hierarchy of needs is new to anybody, but just to kind of make the point that I want to make here anyway. Physiological needs, and Maslow, suggested that that's what the first thing we need to fill. And who's going to send it? Who at school? Which of us educators is going to expect a kid to be an effective student without adequate sleep, without good nourishment, without the right kind of diet, without those other kind of physiological needs being taken care of? Filling those needs allows other things to happen. And which of us is going to expect a kid to be an effective student without, a sense of physical safety? If kids are coming to school and they're afraid of what's going to be happening at school, they're afraid for their physical safety, their emotional safety, they're not going to be ready to do all those kinds of things we want them to do, especially be good, socially, emotionally competent kids anyway. Okay. That's what, we know that ACEs, any kind of, traumatic experience, that's where it digs at those safety and security needs. And until we get those things taken care of, we're not going to have kids behaving exactly the way we need them to behave, and the way they want to behave too. And then after that, according to Maslow, he said that's when belongingness needs really come in. That's what attachment's all about. Okay. Well, Maslow, in this less clearly defined area of esteem needs that he had there, and let's realize Maslow was doing this as a real genius. He was doing this work 80 years ago, is when he first put together this hierarchy of needs anyway. But esteem needs, in the language that Maslow used to talk about those things, it's the desire for strength, for achievement, adequacy, confidence. Those are the kind of things that we're talking about in terms of competence. Okay. And to look at that second quote there on the right here, satisfaction and esteem, the self-esteem needs leads to senses of self-confidence, worth, strength, capability, adequacy. I can't read everything that's there because you guys' pictures are in their way, and I can move them over, I guess, anyway. But anyway, this kind of language he's using there. What he's really talking about is, yeah, he was recognizing even at that time that the need for competence was something we needed to take care of too. And it's not just like a good idea, the need for competence is actually a need. It's a need we need to have kids fulfill. Okay, so the what about the to go back, kind of to pull this back to SEL, when SEL really started with Daniel Goleman's work on emotional intelligence. I think that was 1995 that he developed that. He used I think the word competence and described these things. He was first seeing that in his research that people were successful, seemed to be successful when they had certain abilities, kind of do certain things anyway. It had to do with those kind of EQ things that we've done so much talking about anyway. And it was in his a little bit later when he wrote a book, not as much about education, but more about the world of work, when he was writing about that he really first used the word competence anyway. Okay, 1995, and that's where CASEL's work in competence is all about. And CASEL is all about, from the very beginning, it's all about developing competencies. Okay, this is the old CASEL wheel before they added some realizations that working with communities and getting parents involved and so forth really is helpful in doing that. But if you're not working on competency, you're really not doing SEL. Okay, so it's all about skills, the skills and confidence in using those skills that competence is all about. Okay, so the point that I'm doing this in terms of why does SEL seem to work? What it really does is SEL, when it's done right, it fills kids' needs for competence. And it's competence, not just a good idea. If kids don't feel like they can face the challenges of life socially, emotionally, academically, whatever important areas of their life are, they're not ready to do those other things that we want them to do. And when we can fill kids' needs for competence, that's when good things happen. Okay, and lots of good things can happen. So that's basically my sense anyway about why competence or why SEL works, is because we're filling an important need for kids. Yeah. So the next question then, why is it important that we know about this? Filling kids' basic needs for autonomy, belonging, attachment, that is to say, competence, not just a good idea, it's essential if we're going to want our kids to be interested in learning for learning's own sake, not because they have to get an A or whatever. And if we want kids to be motivated to work, on behalf of others, to care about others' kids. Okay, why does it work, or why is it important that we know about this? Because there's things that every teacher in every class, every day, including every parent in the home every day, can do to make good things happen, can make things happen. Okay? And I want to say a few things about self-determination theory then to do that, because everybody's aware of competence if you're talking about SEL. But self-determination theory basically posits 3 needs. Kids have to have, and adults have to have, this sense of having some autonomy. They've got to have a sense of belonging. They've got to have a sense of competence also. Okay, and autonomy in this sense is it's giving kids. How do we do it? We give kids as much freedom as we possibly can. That is to say, assuming it's developmentally appropriate, so that they feel ownership over their actions and their accomplishments. In other words, it's giving kids a certain amount of freedom, but it's not just freedom to do whatever you want to do. It's freedom to help them develop in ways that we realize are important for them to develop in. Okay. How do educators foster autonomy? These are some of the ways, and this is a really, really brief introduction to this, but it's basically anything we can do to diminish the sense of control in the classroom. In other words, a teacher ought to have control, but there's ways teachers can exert that control that sound very controlling. And there's ways that teachers can exert that control that sound and feel kind of very autonomy supportive of kids, supportive of their learning, encouragement, in other words, is a whole lot different than do it my way, damn it, anyway. So anyway, it's doing that. It's helping kids appreciate the relevance of what they're learning. It's offering choice. Okay, choice gives kids a little bit of freedom. Choice is especially powerful when it's not just a little bit of freedom, but it's also freedom to develop in ways that, that go along with what they're really interested in learning, what they really need to learn, and so forth, what they realize they want to learn. It's helping develop voice in kids, and it's helping to work with, a sense of kids feeling like they have a sense of power. Okay? Help develop the norms for the classroom, all those other things that we do. And when you think about something like a morning meeting or a morning circle that we were talking about in our breakout group also, the whole power of that is when kids are using that to get to know one another, to learn how to support one another, to have a little say over the classroom. In good class meetings, it's not just teacher telling you what the rules are. It's like, let's discuss this. And having kids feel like they've got a voice in building their classroom and building their classroom community and supporting one another and taking responsibility for those kinds of things. So a good morning circle, when you hear it described in the ideal conditions, it's really the kind of morning circle that gives kids important roles to play in making a good classroom. It's fostering their autonomy. It's building relationships. And when there's certain things that need to be dealt with, skills kids need to learn, that's the beauty in a class meeting also, in a morning circle. Okay, we had some problems on the classroom yesterday. Let's talk about solving problems. Okay, so it's really teaching those kind of skills that kids need to learn too. And when kids have that, that's really why those things can be successful. Okay, so if it's just add these three things. If you've got a well-implemented SEL program, let me move this thing out of the way again. Yes, you got a well-implemented program, but no, you're not focusing on kids' needs for autonomy, belonging, and competence. What's the result? You're going to have a certain amount of success, and SEL does have a certain amount of success. Provided the competence, the SEL skills that they're learning are those that kids really need to learn. But beyond that, if they have a well-implemented SEL program and they're in a school where those extra needs are being, looked into, and that's exactly what was happening in Caring School Community. It's exactly what was happening in those early schools in North Yakima School District, when they realized, hey, if this is so successful in this school and it's so successful in this school, maybe we should start doing that in all our schools. So that's really what they started doing. Okay. And when you do both of them, you've got greater academic motivation, greater pro-social motivation, academic achievement. Kids tend to be happier, better school climate. That's what it's all about. Okay. SEL works because it fills kids' needs for competence. Why is it important that we know? Because if we can get teachers, whether they're SEL teachers or not, or whether they have time, whoops, we don't have time for SEL today because we had the fire drill and the assembly both, those kinds of things. The SEL program is less important than consistent attention to giving kids a sense that this is your classroom, we belong to one another, I care deeply about you, and we're going to learn some important skills for being members of a community and working together and taking care of one another and taking care of others. That can be done by anybody at any time. Doesn't cost anything more for a school district to do that. You don't need a fancy program. Fancy programs are good, and there's some very well researched now, and there are some good programs. But the fact is that the power of the program is maybe less behind, and between the lines than it is in what you do during that 1/2 hour that a teacher might be spending with Mind Up or with Caring School Community or with Ruler or with whatever, whatever program they might be working with. The stuff that people can do in every class, every day. And I actually have a few other slides here that have to do with about motivation, because there's ways of moving motivation that, teachers, by doing certain things related to these things, can actually help kids move their motivation from very external motivation. Please don't use rewards and punishments, in other words, and expect kids to really start caring about one another because they're getting those kinds of things. There are certain things that teachers can do to move kids from that kind of external thing into the sense of being motivated because it makes a lot more sense, because it's just a better thing to do, that also don't cost anything. I got some slides about that, but I want to be sensitive to our time also. And what we're going to do is now we're going to take I think we're going to have a short break, if I remember right from Bill anyway, Afterwards, then Tricia and Beth are people who basically have been working on attachment theory and done some things with self-determination theory and really implementing them into school life. And we thought it would be good for people to hear about some of these things as they get out of the realm of ideas and into the realm of real school life and what we can do. The one thing I want to close with about what I just told you about, what we know about the power of attachment theory and the power of self-determination theory. In self-determination theory alone, there is 10 times as much research to prove its effectiveness in terms of its effect on academic, social, and well-being of kids. There's 10 times as much research to show that effectiveness as there is about any SEL program that's been researched. And so those of us that are feeling confident about telling people, research shows that when we have a good SEL program, this happens and this happens. There's 10 times as much research to show the kind of good things that happen when we work on filling kids' needs for autonomy, for attachment, and for competence. All right, end of story.
Deeper perspective. We've got a couple of practitioners that can give us the perspective from the way things look in the classroom on the ground in their schools. And the first one from North Clackamas, from my alma mater, Oak Grove Elementary. Beth, you're an instructional coach, right? Could you do a brief introduction and talk to us about what's going on in your world?
Yes, I'm happy to. My name is Beth Barakat, and I've been a teacher this is my 14th year. This year is my first year as the instructional coach, but I've been at Oak Grove for a really long time. I've taught 1st through 5th grade here in this building, and I am just really proud of the SEL work that we've been doing, the journey that we've been on. So David summarized this already so well, but I would say our journey started with SEL about 8 or 9 years ago when we were not in a good place. So that was a time period when I would say individual teachers were doing the best they could. We were doing lots of community building on our own within our 4 walls of our classrooms, and but really school-wide, we did not have. It was very. I would say our referral stack was like this big, and we weren't getting any different results with what we were doing, just kind of piecemealing on our own. And we had really low staff morale. So it was a really low point at our school at that time. And Sid Ong came in, that's the administrator who had such great success at his other school with kind of turning things around. So he was brought to our school. And just really, from a teacher perspective, I think that one of the major things that helps SEL work in a school is strong leadership. It just really has to be, we were given the time and the space and the learning capacity by Sid to build our own competence around SEL in kind of a slow and steady way. He really helped us. He took a lot of things off our plate that were just extra things that we were involved with, and taking away and contributing to some of the challenges that we were having. So he really, from the start, prioritized our work and our learning around SEL. And we all did it together. Another thing that I think contributes to the success of SEL in a school building is that everyone is involved. It cannot be just a teacher or a certified staff kind of a thing. We really, from the beginning, involved our instructional assistants. We have training to our office staff and anyone else in the building because we all interact with kids. So that was a priority as well from the start. And I think that now, many years later, that's something that is really ingrained in how we do everything that we do. We do it in partnership. So teachers and IAs work very, very strongly together. Shortly after Sid joined us, Marie Claire joined us as our instructional coach, and just brought all of her experience and passion for SEL to us. And what I remember about that time is just being I think that Marie Claire helped us cultivate this culture in our school where other teacher leaders emerged around SEL, and we really felt we felt like we could do this work together. What it looked like early on, we did some book studies. We really dug into learning to trust, and it just all about relationship building, which a lot of people in our building, that felt very natural and good to us. So that was a very natural place to start. We jumped into character and the ABCs. We did a lot of this foundational work before we ever even adopted an SEL curriculum. So I think that speaks to this idea that you don't necessarily need a curriculum, although we have one that's wonderful. I would recommend it. But it was more about learning how to live the ABCs in our classrooms and in our school than just having a program come in. We included protected time in our schedules from the start to have protected time for morning meetings and closing circles and those kinds of things, just like we do in our academic schedule. But we also elevated the importance of integrating SEL throughout other academic content areas. So it wasn't just about this segment of time in the day that was SEL. We protected time, and that was a really good thing. I think that our administration allowed us to do for our schedule, but just also really practiced weaving it in everything that we did. We really worked on building a more we worked on more intentional staff relationship building with each other, because we really recognized that we needed a strong student to student relationships, but also, and staff to student relationships, but also staff to staff relationships in order to do this work well. We completely shifted from any kind of extrinsic motivation, reward, punishment system, and really have been trying over the years to cultivate intrinsic motivation in every opportunity that we get with kids. We've shifted to being a restorative practices school over the years, and we just generally elevate that this is your choice and we're going to teach you how to make good choices, just like we would teach reading and math. We became a looping school. That's one thing that I think that has contributed to our success, is that at every opportunity we can, we really try to loop up with our kids. So that's when first and second grade, they loop together. So teachers are having their classrooms for 2 years. So at our school, we have a 1-2 looping system and a 3-4 looping system, and then kindergarten and 5th grade are kind of their own things. But that is just another way that we really elevate and protect and preserve that relationship building and just really knowing our students really well. I think just in general, we elevate the importance of social emotional well-being and skill building in what we do. This led to our adoption of Caring School Community, and I have to say that I love the program. I think it is extremely comprehensive. It has allowed us, and actually we started with the first version of it, and I have to say too that the second edition it's even stronger. The first version was good. The second edition is easy to pick up and implement, and so from a practitioner perspective, we need it to be that way. And what it has allowed us is that every classroom can use it in the same way. And that provides really consistent language, vocabulary. We were talking earlier in our breakout room, Tricia said that kids start to ask for that language. They know how to ask for it, and this provides that language. They really know what to expect. It provides that consistency. And then there are components of it that have really allowed us to build classroom within our community, but then our school-wide community, and then our larger family and parent and larger community as well. It really has the capacity to build that. We have elements of ritual that we really preserve in our school that I think students really and staff really look forward to and love. We have part of the Caring School Community curriculum is cross-age buddies. So students older and younger students have the opportunity to build really strong relationships with each other outside of their classrooms and, see a friendly face in the hallway, that kind of thing. So it really speaks to the building of a stronger, larger community. We have electives in our school, which isn't necessarily, it's not a piece of Caring School, but it's a ritual that we've implemented over the years where students just get to mix and mingle all grade levels. And when we don't have electives, kids almost demand that we do. And so last year we got kind of creative online to do it, but they really wanted to, and it was extremely successful because year after year, these are the kinds of things that they rely on and that they look forward to. So these are just some of the components of Caring School and other things that we've implemented here that I think really help continue to elevate the work around SEL. Marie-Claire was speaking earlier about just the intentional, we have this core program, but how do we address students who really need tiered instruction around social emotional learning? Most recently here, we have implemented the DESA system to really collect data around SEL, and that's very new for us. We had a couple teachers pilot it a couple years ago, and we're using it as a whole school this year for the first time. So we're in the process of collecting that data and using that data to inform our instruction around social emotional learning. And one other thing that I want to say is that we've been really lucky. We've had 2 administrators since Sid Ong, the person who really helped us begin this journey. And both of those administrators really saw the value in what we were doing. And I think had either one of them stepped in and tried to, shut it down or make big changes, it goes back to that leadership component. I don't think that we would be able to do what we can do and continue to grow in doing if we didn't have leaders that believed in this work. So we've just really seen the benefits in the way students interact with one another and the way our adults interact with students. The focus is truly on teaching social emotional skills, just like we do any other academic area. And that's kind of what it looks like at Oak Grove. And we have every intention to continue forward in elevating SEL in this way.
Wow. That's great. That's great. Really appreciate that, Beth. And I appreciate how well you articulated what you described in your school with David's presentation. Now I'd like to introduce Tricia Murphy, and Tricia has a different spin because her on the ground perspective is in a different location. But I wonder, Tricia, if there's some consistency here.
It's actually, the flow is really great to go from David and the theory, and then to hear how it's been implemented in a school and school district. And now I really am going to show you how I implement the practices in the classroom. So I made a slideshow and you're just going to see pictures, but I have to say, to pare it down to 15 minutes, David squeaked out an extra 5 for me, is challenging. So I just want to invite you. I'm in the Beaverton School District. I was in the Centennial School District for 7 years, and then I moved to Beaverton and I've been there. I've been teaching for 21 years, 2nd through 6th grade. And a couple of things I was taking notes as Beth was talking. I did go from 5th grade down to 3rd grade so that I could loop, and I cannot suggest that enough. I think it's really powerful. This group I'm with right now, I looped with, they were in 2nd and 3rd grade last year on Zoom. And so I have them as 3rd and 4th graders, and my plan is to loop with at least a good chunk of them to 4th and 5th grade. And so anyway, I just want to invite you to come visit me in Beaverton if you want, because this is really just scratching the surface. And my passion is taking the research that David's doing, and he's rewriting his book and putting it into practice in the classroom and having him come visit. So you're welcome to, because I'm really just scratching the surface. So I'm going to share my screen and show you. This is a really perfect fit with everything that people have talked about today. So I was able to hear David present in 2019, and I was just really blown away by the research that he presented and around autonomy, belonging, and competence. And it just fit with what I was trying in the classroom. But my coworker and I, we went back and we just really, I like to think of it like we just doubled down on it, and we just tried to see where we could give students even more autonomy and belonging, which we started feeling like if we focused on autonomy and belonging, the competence followed, like students were gaining the skills to feel competent. So I just want to show you some practical examples of how we've done this. And I can't speak enough to, my arrows never work, to the integration through the whole day. And one thing that has really become clear to me, and this was in a book that fits David's research, Kids First from Day One, that often for the beginning of my career, I would try short-term solutions that were band-aids, punishments and rewards, and they just didn't have the long-term effects. So instead of managing a classroom, I love how this book talks about, or Christine Mraz, instead of managing a classroom, the goal is to build a community. And the frustrating part for teachers and admin, I think, is that this is a longer term commitment, and you don't see the results right away. But modeling those pro-social skills and teaching those explicitly and positive mindsets takes more time, which I think can be frustrating, and why I think people may give up because they don't see the rewards as soon, or they don't see it. And I've started thinking about this as like an ecosystem, and I've read about this in a couple different books, but thinking about creating and I love how Beth, I wrote down, said cultivating a culture. I started thinking about this as an ecosystem, and I'll talk about that at the end. Oh my gosh, by the way, I am worried about going over, so I'm starting my timer. So this also, I know people have mentioned this today, so I won't take a lot of time on this, but it really does start with relationship building and teacher to student. I think a lot of people think about teacher to student, and Beth mentioned staff to staff and staff to students with the collaboration with IAs and teachers. But I think sometimes we don't, maybe we undervalue the student to student relationships and how intentional we have to be with students, intentionally creating relationships between students. And I think in order to have a restorative philosophy in your classroom, the students have to know and care about each other. And so, but I feel like this really has to be proactive and intentional, and finding like the genius within our students, but also helping other students recognize the genius that is in each student, and celebrate that in each other, even if someone may be different than you, or maybe they're working on their social skills, but actually noticing, well, who are they and what are their strengths? So that's something that we've been really thinking about, also how to create that. And so I have some practical examples of how we do this. And so this one, we start with a soft start. And this research, is Eric Jensen and Harvey Daniels, but the kids come in for about 15 minutes. We have a soft start. We have upbeat music. With COVID, it's been a little hard, flexible seating. It's relaxing a little bit, but usually they get to choose wherever they want to sit. And the students, the room design, it sort of evolves over the year based on each classroom, and it's unique each year. Some kids come in and read or write. There's a lot of talking, eating breakfast. This year we have breakfast in our room, which is like really nice, not for the ants, but nice for the community building. Sometimes they get out choice time activities. So they're playing games, building. We have class pets, and I'll go into that next, but also I'm going to go into student jobs. So this is a time that they just connect, and this is a really great chance for them to just build relationships. They get to just kind of have a slow ease into their day. We start really early. They come in at 7:45. So it's also really early for me too. I think when I think about SEL, and I think that what I've learned that makes the most difference is the students owning and running the classroom. And I tell them, I'm going to teach, I'm in charge of the teaching, but you're in charge of everything else. So you run the classroom. And this leadership has evolved over the years, but it's based on whatever social studies standards I teach. So in 5th grade, it's the US government. In 4th grade, it's the state of Oregon. And in 3rd grade, it's the city government. So I can, get some social studies standards in. And also these are some examples of a 5th grade government where it's based on the United States government. And the kids apply for these jobs. It's a big deal. They really do. I really try to give them as much power and freedom as I can to make as many decisions as I possibly can. This year we had a student join late who had natural leadership, and he was kind of one of those kids that he's going to lead one way or the other. And so we added a job for him that was ambassador of the United Nations. And he actually, I'm going to talk about restorative practices in a slide coming up, but this has been huge this year. He's running our restorative circles and our problem solving circles. And this has been so huge because I feel like when people say, it has to be embedded through the whole day and you can't skip it. The more I empower the students and the more I tell them, this book, Troublemakers, I read was so powerful about just trusting the kids and telling the kids, you have the best ideas, you're more creative than the adults. I know you're going to have better ideas than me, and empowering them in that. They will tell you, especially in the unstructured times, which is where we struggle the most, coming in from specials or afternoon recess, the one that I'm not on duty for that one. This student, he now will just signal me like this, just like making a circle with his fingers, like we are going to circle up right now. And he decides that and leads that. And sometimes I really don't want to, because especially if it's been a week where we've had more restorative circles, but I've just learned to trust the students. Sometimes I'll say, okay, we'll talk to the president and Speaker of the House, and if they agree. But, I think that's sometimes what's hard for teachers is we might have to be flexible on the afternoon schedule. One day this week, we had to shorten math. But if you don't do that when it's needed, then it doesn't work. So I think that's something that I've really recognized is really listening to the students and trusting them and empowering them has been so huge for me. So David mentioned this, we always have a community circle every morning. This is a chance to build community where students belong. They feel like they belong. Everyone shares. They can pass, but they don't. We just do fun questions in the morning, like would you rather questions, or sometimes we say what zone we're in and why. That's like Wednesdays, or a weekend update or question of the day. And the Speaker of the House leads that. Our Chief Justice, he leads, well, it's a he this year. He leads our agenda. And so the judicial branch, they kind of lead our agenda, any agenda items from the day before. He goes over that. And then his branch also goes over the schedule for the day. So I think that the big part about community circles that sometimes I think a lot of people might do the morning circle, but we also have a reflection after all academic subjects, like how did it go? What were your successes and struggles? And then I think the most powerful circles we have, other than our restorative circles, which I'm going to get to, but our end of day circles, where we actually always end the day after we get ready, put our backpacks in our spots. We always end the day with celebrations. What was a success from today for you? Or even more powerful, what are the compliments you have? And we really model and teach them how to give specific compliments. Students that you're seeing making a lot of growth on their goals toward their future learning, their future goals. And that is so powerful for our students who are exhibiting like the tier 2 and tier 3 behaviors. Marie Claire was mentioning that, we think about what we're putting in place for tier 1, but those, when when students are complimented for the growth that they're making with their social skills, it's so powerful. And I think that the peer-to-peer recognition is more powerful than anything that the adults say to them. So this is something that I never skip and we always make time for. Okay, so I went to a diversity conference and I was just asking, you know, how do you bring students together when they might, it's hard to find things in common. And she said that they have to have fun together. So we build in time for fun. We always have a brain break in the morning every day. And our Surgeon General leads the brain breaks. And this year it's a girl who makes sure everyone has a turn. She goes by the class list and they get to choose what brain break that the class is going to do that day, and it's not optional. Everyone participates because we're building our community and they know the purpose of it. And so is to have fun and build relationships and build a strong community. So we also, yesterday, we had a really successful music, which we don't always have. So we had a celebration dance party, and we just try to build in fun whenever we can and keep it really positive. I know that not everyone will embrace lizards, but we have class pets, and lizards are a big part of our day. They come out this year. They are coming out way more than they ever have. You can see, I don't know if you can see, but the person that leads our number talk every day, he's decided it's called Norbert's Number Talk, and he's a bearded dragon, and he's on the desk every day leading it, and he's like 10, so he just sits there. But he's also, I'll see him and I won't even realize he's out, but the lizards are out a lot, and they're a big part of they just kind of, I don't know, make it feel more like a family. It's a shared experience for the students. It also brings students together that wouldn't necessarily hang out. So that is a big part of our day. Pets, and they're out, I don't know why, but they're just out way more this year. In the morning, I'll look and someone's writing that what they were researching. There's a picture here. I don't know if you can see it, but she was researching about leopard geckos, and the leopard geckos right next to her, which I didn't even realize. So also, we have choice time every day, and it's not something they earn. They always get it. It is a chance where I will talk to students and meet with students. If there's restorative conversations we need to have from recess or different parts of the day, we will have those for part of it, but I never take their whole choice time. It's just a chance to check in with students. I'm doing a lot of coaching on social skills, and it's also a time that we see students playing together who would never play together. And this year I changed the name with them to Playtime, because I told them, you have a lot of choice in your learning all day. You have choice in what you read, and you often have choice in the genres that you're writing, or at least the topic within the genre. And you have choice with strategies you use in math. So we changed it to Playtime, but I called it choice time because that's what most people are used to. But it's just, this is a time that really students look forward to it. It's just a time to have fun, but also build strong relationships. And then again, I agree that the program isn't what's important. It's the integration and weaving of the social and emotional skills throughout the day. So we have loved this book by Christine Mraz called A Mindset for Learning. And in the interest of time, David suggested that I would just focus on one. There are 5 of these pro-social mindsets, but optimism is one that I feel like we use a lot. And yesterday, a student was really frustrated with the math, was telling me, I can't do it, I don't want to. And I just interrupt. We just have a practice of interrupting the negative self-talk and I was feeding him the positive self-talk. I know you can do it. I'm right here. I'm going to help you. Let's do it. I know you can. You did it yesterday. So and then we recognize students, and this is actually a student's job. She's really good at it this year, to recognize students who are using these mindsets throughout the day. And for me, this is really powerful, especially the more we focus on it and the more we highlight it, the more success we have with it. And it's also a time at the end for the reflection circle where we can come back and say, this student really felt like giving up today, but they were persistent, or they were the bouncy ball and they were resilient and they bounced back. And he actually didn't just finish that day's math, he did the day before, and then he made me make up some more math. So that's a chance to highlight that in the reflection circle. And he had a pretty annoying tantrum. So it was pretty cool to circle back to that and tell the class that he was really resilient and bounced back and did 3 math assignments. So, and then the way that we teach these, we really do a lot through reading books. I really try to find books that look like the students in our classroom, people who have really overcome obstacles in their lives. We play a lot of inspirational music and videos. The one that I'm doing more lately that's really powerful is role plays. And we really try to link everything to who you want to be in the future. What are your future goals? And this is the kind of person you're going to be. And we use these mindsets to keep toward our future goals and overcoming obstacles. So I know I'm going over this really quickly. I'm really sorry. I'm looking at my time and I have so much I like to say. And then the restorative, I know that Beth mentioned this, and so I know people know about restorative practices, so I wasn't going to spend a lot of time on this, but I think what's powerful for me is that I do have the students now, and I'm just going to jump to this next one. I focus on this action cycle a lot with them. There were only 8, 9, and 10. We're always growing and changing. And even I am at 49, but you are really growing and changing. We're reflecting. We need to allow other people to change, and that all behavior is a form of communication. If students could, they would, they don't want to struggle socially. That mindset to teach kids has been powerful. And then I just wanted to focus before I move on that restorative circles, we have sometimes individuals, sometimes small groups, and then sometimes we just had an example where we had to have a restorative circle with 3 classes and just certain kids were invited. But one thing I'm learning too, which actually came from Indigenous cultures, is having concerned community members there also to model the pro-social skills. I feel like I try to go with like at least 50% students who weren't involved. And that's been really powerful because they can give really good ideas. So that's been something that we just tried. I invited students who were just concerned about what was happening at recess to offer their perspective and ideas. And that's been really powerful. So, and it's made a huge difference. We were having a lot of recess drama with the same students, but to involve other kids who were aware of it and witness to it was really powerful. So, but this is, I'm going through restorative circles every day, multiple times a day. The students get really good at running them. And they know, they ask for them. They tell us, no, we need to have it. This is more than half the class, or no, this just involves a few people. And sometimes if it's just a few, we'll just do it after, or we'll do it during choice time, just the beginning of it. But these are definitely embedded, and the students, their skills grow so much, just their communication skills. It's amazing. And then these are just some examples of some different types of circles. And then I just, this is kind of where I just have this metaphor in my mind lately. This is one of our geckos, and we are in a science unit, and I have this amazing student teacher who we made this live vivarium, and she's talking about how essential all of the pieces are to this healthy ecosystem. And I just keep thinking about this as the classroom, that all of these components are essential, and telling kids that, and that everyone's important and everyone has skills and strengths that come together to creating this this ecosystem. And if one of you weren't here, it wouldn't be the same. So this is just a metaphor that I've been working with in my mind, but also with them. And I don't know, for me, it's just been kind of powerful. So, you know, I know that people use the garden, but my student teacher and I have been really thinking about this as a metaphor for our classroom. And I love that when Beth said like cultivating a culture, this is what came to mind. So anyway, I think I maybe went a couple minutes over. I apologize.
There's nothing to apologize for.
Okay.